Boxing, that's fascinating that you mentioned that. It's like being at a bar. It's like being at the high bar just talking about. So let's go to boxing because I want to get to the bloodlust that's involved in boxing. There is something primal, once again, about wanting to see that happen. And the interesting thing is boxing does seem to be fading in favor of things like the UFC.
It is interesting, isn't it? And I think the demographic, ironically, is different for the UFC. People seem to be, it's much more white, actually. I don't know what that is. I think it costs more money to do mixed martial arts or something. I haven't been able to figure it out. But it just came to Vancouver for the first time as well, and because it was being pushed away. And this is another, back to the prohibition ideas. They've stopped it from being the UFC in Vancouver for years and years, and then they finally said yes to it, and it sold out faster than any UFC fight in history. 19,000 people at GM Place, which is our stadium there, and five of the fighters went to the hospital afterwards, which maybe that's standard practice. It's also standard in boxing. But the guy that won the fight actually broke his arm in the first round and won with a broken arm. He just kept punching with a broken arm. I mean, I get a hangnail, and I'm just like, I just stop writing. I don't even write with a hangnail.
You're a singer-songwriter, of course.
I know, but I'm strumming, and this is painful, and I can't find my way anymore.
So what do we take away from that, though? I mean,
well,
I think both of us really incredibly courageous and at the same time asinine.
I think it's both.
Not the Karate Kid.
No,
you don't do crane technique.
That remake actually had the #1 weekend as well. The Karate Kid. I mean, there's something about this being able to. The primal idea of it, but I think what you said is really important. That there are both incredibly courageous and it's asinine. I think it's a really curious world where we don't know how to use our best warriors in any useful way. You know, the most courageous, physically courageous people on the planet are fighting each other in a cage. I think it's really curious.
How should they be used on the game show Wipeout? Where do you want them to go?
I think we could do with where we use armed forces, and this is a totally different issue, but it basically goes into the inner city and it gets the poorer people to sign up for the military. And why don't you get warriors to sign up for the military? Those that are really ready to fight and are open to fight. They're built that way. They're actually built that way to fight. You know, you can see in World War I, everybody ran for conscription, and you can see these old black and white films of this person who should really be a poet ends up in the trenches of France, and he's actually can't stop shaking. He's like this, and they're so hard to watch because they're so shell-shocked because they're not built for that. Like Gandhi's, one of the great human beings of the 20th century, let's say, but
terrible poet,
and he could never play in the NHL because why? Because not that he wasn't a great enough guy. It's just because he wasn't built for it.
Right, he didn't take up enough net space.
In the corners, he would get hammered by these bruisers, and also he was never a great heavyweight either. So I think people are more inclined to be warriors than other people, and we ignore our everybody's instincts and natures.
So, are you suggesting we take all the heavyweight class and the UFC champions and send them out to Afghanistan and clear up the Taliban? Because I'm not sure they're going glove to glove.
I think I would personally I would pull out of Afghanistan and just first of all, but
but that's a preventative measure.
I'm just saying, if you don't get out, we're sending Mike Tyson over there. I think
he's crazy. Tattooed his face.
Watch out! Everybody, cover your ears. I think what am I, a politician? I don't know. No, I don't know.
But you just said it.
But you started.
People who are warriors should go do things more inclined for people. What does that mean?
I just think that
you want them to go door to door. Killing insurgents? Is that better?
Tell me, I just think that people that are there is the noble warrior. There's the samurai idea where you protect the innocent and you protect the elderly. And I think, we have a massive, America has 8 times the crime rate of any, and massive amounts of incarceration compared to the rest of the West, and it's the land of the free. And I think, and so you could have people protecting.
That's with an asterisk.
Yeah, it is, because no one knows the real facts on China. That's right. I just think that great warriors are vital in this world. Like police officers, that's a warrior by definition. They're warriors, and they're used when they're paid well. They're used in an effective way. When they're not paid well, they're in Mexico and they're being bought out because they're not being paid enough in the war on drugs and so on. But yeah, no, I think that a police officer is meant to be a great warrior as well.
So pay them well.
Pay them well,
and they'll be okay.
Pay them.
But let's talk about.
Actually, you know what they really need? Right. A good warrior needs a good mind behind the warrior, giving good instruction. It's that's what they need.
So you met all these boxers, all these fantastic boxers, who many of whom can barely speak at this point because
Well, a
they've
few
been
of them,
so
a few of them
damaged.
for sure, definitely.
Well, Mr. Frazier and
Yeah, four of them.
Mr. Norton Sr. have had some rough
that
times.
that might have been a car accident for Ken, but
Right.
four of them were subtitled. You're right, which was a sort of just a way of, and they speak English, so that right away says a lot. But that was really we didn't have to delve in to say how rough and tough boxing is. You know, it just showed it right there that you can't fight too long. You can't take blows to the head. The head is very strong but very fragile. You know.
Right, but they got paid well. Not as well as Ali.
If they got in with Ali, they got paid well. That's the point
Right.
of that film, almost. You know, if
Right.
they got into the higher echelons, but the lower echelons is not a great paying.
But that's a
situation.
hard thing to turn down, isn't it?
Very hard. It's extremely hard. It's extremely hard to turn down any kind of decent monetary gain when you don't have any money.
I mean, I have to say, when you, like, even if you watch the whole Tyson arc to some extent, you know, I would like to be one of those tomato cans.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, apparently all you have to do is about 40 seconds. You know, as much as it hurt, I could have done 40 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could knock me out.
Well, I mean, actually, Michael Spinks only did 30 seconds, so I don't know. You could whatever. But well, you have to get to that place, of course. Of course, you're joking. Or are you joking?
No, I'm
But
looking for a
think,
get-rich
I think
quick
that
scheme.
I think that definitely it's a money-making venture like that, and if you can make money doing it, you follow that instinct. If you're not particularly inclined, back to inclination, back to school, or you're in a situation where you're a really big, strong athlete, and you're able to make money doing the sports you're in, it's very tempting. You know?
So I clearly cannot and will not blame the boxers whatsoever, or the people in the UFC. There are socioeconomic reasons to do it, and a great deal of financial incentive to go ahead.
And,
right?
and also, some of them have said, I've heard the UFC stuff recently because I've been looking at that a little bit. People have said fighting in those fights, is some of the most euphoric states they get in. It's almost like, one guy, I can't remember what his name was, he almost said it was almost like a religious experience. I guess the flow and the adrenaline is so high. I know. It's so, I think, but that's because they're meant to do that. I would do that, and I'd say it wasn't a religious experience. I crap my pants. That's just not the same, you know. So I think I'm not meant to do UFC at all, you know. I hate being in a cage. I just don't enjoy it at all. And getting beat up. Two things I don't like in life: being in a cage and getting beat up. I'm just, call me sensitive.
So much for tomorrow's event, but okay.
Yeah.
I understand, but do we take some responsibility as spectators? Fighters are getting paid well. Why shouldn't they? Promoters are getting the money. Are we responsible? Do you think that people should stop watching boxing and stop supporting the UFC, or should we support that euphoric condition that they get to reach?
I think that I'm from Canada, so and we're generally accused of being socialists, but I have libertarian tendencies, big time, and I think that a person should be allowed to do what they want to do, even when you're talking about suicide. It's an interesting thing. I think we should not let other people own our bodies, and so that's a very nuanced statement. It needs to be nuanced, that statement, but I think people want to fight, they should fight. I mean, it finds a place in a given culture, and there it is. So I would definitely, I'm not a prohibitionist by definition of almost anything, you know, unless it's harmful to people outside of oneself, you know.
But seeing the impact that it's had on so many, are you pro-boxing?
I'm pro the right to box.
Pro the right to box.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. And boxing, you know, my pro boxing, what I want, I'm going to be a dad in a couple of months, which is very exciting. And if he or she wants to box, I will discourage it.
You'll discourage it.
Yeah, I'll discourage it.
Unless the stakes are high.
Unless the money's good.
And unless unless Don King's involved, because he is
only if
a
Don King's
murderous psychopathic.
He is, but with a
nutcase.
Heart. But with a heart.
Really?
No, I have no idea.
I doubt it.
He's only killed 2 people, so don't start
Oh, 2,
talking
I'm
about.
sorry,
Yeah.
I was
But
thinking-
one was that was someone else. Never mind.
You get the first one free. I think that is a 2-for-1.
Actually, the first one he did not get free. He went to prison for. The second one he got off. So there you go. It's as his film that he made is called Only in America, or whatever you go, you know. So
Now, if people want to know more about boxing, other than facing Ali, which is absolutely fantastic, what should they watch?
It was a great gift to make that film. Meeting those 10 guys I love those guys, and I still, when I see the film now, if I'm showing somewhere, I always say I'm going to go out and have a chai or a water or maybe a really strong martini, but I stay because even though that's my film that I directed, I like to watch them talk. I really enjoy those 10 people. So
I do too. It didn't teach me to love boxing. It taught me to love boxers, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So what else is there? There's Facing Ali, and then what do you have? Books or movies?
Well, I've been developing some documentaries lately. You know, there's a possibility that They might do something on Bruce Lee actually.
Yeah.
And I've been working on something about why we love and hate labor unions and labor, and actually the rights of workers in the third world and so on, and how will they get those rights, and how will we keep rights here to making work dignified. And I've been working on something on the war on drugs actually. That's why it's at the top of my brain. I'm going to Vienna next week for the HIV and AIDS conference, and there's a big declaration called the Vienna Declaration, which is basically saying that the war on drugs is a catastrophe because it creates the policies behind the war on drugs, heavy military and police response to it, and high incarceration causes more violence. Not drug violence, but violence all around, statistically actually, not in theory. So it's just not. It's neither moral ultimately or pragmatic. Even if you're conservative, it's not fiscally pragmatic, and if you're whatever else is left.
If you're a drug addict, you're opposed.
Yeah. And it's against harm reduction, which you know, I need harm reduction even for my lower back. So I'm pro harm reduction. I stretch, you know. So I think, does that mean it's over?
Well, no. It's great. You're a happy-go-lucky guy. I'm looking forward to your documentary on watermelon.
What does that mean?
Something light, something frivolous that Americans
I'm
want to see.
going to make them funny. Oh, you
Come on.
Bruce Lee. Why are you against Bruce Lee? What is that? Is that what?
No, Bruce Lee's good.
Oh, yeah.
Bruce Lee's good.
So, they might be fun though. We're gonna laugh about labor unions. I love labor unions like that. You know, that's a really funny.
A comedy. Get somebody like Gallagher to do it or something to be the narrator.
I want to do one day. I'll do my novel, Understanding Ken. That would be fun. That would be fun. About a 10-year-old kid who can't deal with his parents' divorce and blames the hockey team for the problems. You see how funny it is? They're laughing, and crying.
Oh, Canadians may have a better life, but they're not any happier than we are. So,
we live about 4 months longer, I think. You know, statistically, I don't know how it.
Well, that's at the end of your life. Who needs that?
I know.
Exactly. The fun at the beginning.
It's so much better to buy 10 years earlier is better, actually.
Right, as in the teen years.
At the peak of your game, you know.
When I couldn't get a girlfriend. So watch Facing Ali if you want to know more about boxing. Also, James Toback did the film Tyson, which I think is an incredible examination of him, because you get a true sense of that man, which you don't have when you just think about the tattoo and the ear biting and the general psychosis.
Yeah, you see a really wounded guy. I mean, you really do see this guy. Tyson is really a wounded guy inside. You can see that he doesn't know quite how to respond to the world at all, and of course he responds in the way his instincts lead him, and that's a disaster quite often.
Wow. So first rule, never talk about Fight Club. Second rule, don't talk about the high bar. But let's go at it while the cameras go off. Can you teach me a few?
I got nothing to show you. I got just an elbow. This is the only one I know from hockey. You know, no. Oh, this one here.
That's not a boxing move. Yeah, well, that's a street fight move.
It is a street fight. I never did street fights.
I've never been. Your wife did it.
I've never been. My wife did.
Your wife is tougher than you are.
She broke way tougher and way smarter too. She was in Paris and she was being harassed. She was 19 and she weighed about 100 pounds and she was in Paris, and this Frenchman that kept harassing her, and she said, "Please don't harass me anymore because I really want to go home back to Canada and I'm tired." And he said, "Why are you being like that, baby?" And he said, "Just get away from me." And she went, Kush, and his nose exploded right in that moment and covered her in blood. She ran down the streets of the Champs-Élysées or wherever she ran, and he walked out from the bathroom, and all his friends were there with his broken nose after this person, about 5'3" or 5 or 6, knocked his nose.
He was a short Frenchman, though. Apparently. Okay. Well, there are still warrants out for her arrest. But thank you.
Interpol.
Thank you. Maybe we'll get back across the border safely. Thank you, Pete McCormack.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. You didn't drink?
I did. Someone finished.
There you go.